Welcome to the Renegade Society radio show. Thank you all for joining us. I am Sarah Erickson, Director of Sales and Marketing here at Renegade Game Studios. And we are so lucky this week to be joined by one of the best storytellers, writers, game designers, most fun, fabulous people in the world, Banana Chan. Thank you so much for coming, Banana. How's it going?
Thank you so much for having me. This is super fun.
Yay! So I do have just a few really quick things to tell everybody before we get started, because I have so many questions for you. But before we get going, a few quick notes. Bargain Quest Sunk Cost comes out next week. So if you haven't pre-ordered that from your friendly local game store yet, please do that. It's going to be very fun to add pirates to your exciting monster adventures and do some good economic works on making sure you sell all sorts of stuff to them. And so yeah, that comes out next Wednesday. Also, we have Vampire the Masquerade Rivals expandable card game on Kickstarter right now. Still working on that. Lots and lots of fun stuff. Since we saw you last week, there have been tons of people that have jumped into our campaign. Lots of Vampire fans. So if you like Vampire, come and chat with them. It's been exciting. You can go to vampirerivals.com and find the link for that. And what else is going on? We have so many things going on. We have Raiders Collector's Edition coming out. We have Warp's Edge is going out to Kickstarter backers starting now. We just have, at least in Australia, we have it on the way over to the US. And we have Power Rangers stuff that's on the water right now. Just tons and tons of things going on. So go check out our website, renegadegames.com. That's enough of that stuff for now. We're going to be asking questions. So if you are in the chat and you have exciting questions for Banana, please post those and we will get to them near the end of the show. And we'll also be giving away some of the fantastic games that Banana has worked on for us. So as a good intro to Banana Chan, here are some of the games that she's worked on that we'll be giving away. Athenaeum, a Mystic Library, coming out in October. Warp's Edge, a solo adventure, also coming out in October. Kids on Bikes, an RPG that anybody can play, that came out a few years ago. She wrote for that. And Terror Below, another Kickstarter project we did a few years ago that is about crazy wild worms rampaging around in the desert. So, yay! You worked on all sorts of stuff for us. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm Banana Chan. I am a game designer and writer. I've done a whole bunch of stuff for Renegade. And I also have a small box board game / RPG publishing company on the side. So yeah, I've done a few things.
That's amazing. I actually forgot about that. So what have you published with your side project, as you say?
So right now, one of the projects that we're working on is Junction Blood in the Banquet Hall. So we just finished the Kickstarter yesterday for that, and we're co-publishing that with Wet Ink Games. So
oh my gosh, yeah. I have to say that cover art on that box, I assume that was by Kwanchai Moria, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That is one of the most beautiful box covers I've ever seen on any game. It just blew me away. That's awesome. Well, congratulations on your Kickstarter. That's cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, Seventh One Limb and I have been working on it since like 2018. So it's exciting to see.
Nice. That's very exciting. Cool. So you have that coming out. What other projects are you working on? Anything you can talk about?
So I guess Scooby-Doo Betrayal at Mystery Mansion just came out. So that was on a team with Brian Neff, Rob Davio, and Noah Cohen. So that's out now. And I think, I'm also working on Dune, the RPG. So that's another thing I'm working on.
Wow.
Yeah, and then recently, Kids on Bikes, we did some stuff for that for the Free Content Friday. So that's a fun thing.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So you have such a wide breadth of different types of games that you've worked on, everything from RPGs to board games to everything in between. So what got you into games just in general?
So I think I got into working on games like a few years ago. So it was pretty recent. I had finished playing Monster Hearts for the first time, and I was like, this is incredible. I need to like ingest more games. So after I played Monster Hearts, which is by Avery Alder, I just went on my way to like, look for more indie games that are like that. And one of my first games that I wrote was for the Golden Cobra Challenge, which is a small uh, indie LARP challenge. And one of my first games that I wrote was called The Other Place. And then after that, I wrote They're Onto Me, which won Best Pervasive LARP. And then after that, it was just like, oh, I'm writing a bunch of games now. So that's how it happened. It just snowballed.
That's awesome. Have you always enjoyed writing, or is that something new for you?
I've always enjoyed storytelling. So my background's actually in video. So I went to school for video art, and that's what I studied. And I always liked making stories, like telling them. And then after a while, I guess like I somehow got into writing. And through games specifically was where I just like really got that, creative energy and just, really got into it.
That's awesome. Very cool. So, what excites you about writing and designing games now? Like, do you have a certain thing that you're trying to accomplish when you do that?
Yeah, I think writing about like my own culture and identity is really important to me. Like specifically for our latest Kickstarter, that was like something that was really important for me. I think just writing things that are personally important is like a huge thing for me. Like if I get the chance to, I would love to publish like more games that are you know based around my own experiences. And it's very cathartic experience, like writing something that you've experienced in the past. So I think that that's like something that I really want to focus in on.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be emotionally draining at times. What do you do to keep writing when you kind of get to a writer's block, or maybe when it feels like too much? Like, what helps you push through that?
Going for walks is really important. So I know a lot of people say this, specifically writers, they always talk about like, just go for a walk. And, during the COVID times, it's probably a little harder for some people. But, when I can't go for a walk, I like to just turn everything off, stay away from social media for a bit, and just like watch some TV or read a book or like, listen to a podcast. Or just even have a cup of coffee and like stay away from everything. And that sort of helps like the creative juices. Podcasts and TV shows definitely help as well.
Is there a TV show you've been watching, especially with all of us in lockdown, that you've just really enjoyed?
This is going to sound a little strange. I really enjoy The Circle. It's a reality TV show. I think I've mentioned this before to you. So basically, the premise of this is like, so I started watching like before lockdown, and basically it's exactly the same as what we're experiencing now, where these players, these contestants are on a reality TV show, and it's sort of like Big Brother, but none of the contestants actually meet one another. They until like the very end when they get voted off or something like that. But basically, they vote one another off based on their profile pictures and their posts that they like share with one another. So that's something that like I was like really into, and also just like I think it's like really easy to gamify as well. So a friend and I were like writing about it and like trying to make it applicable into like a playable thing.
I'm really fascinated by these sort of alternate digital experiences that people are now bringing into our space. Like Alice is missing that Hunters Entertainment is doing, and we're getting close to announcing that we're working on that too. Secret info. So that one, that one also is really different that way because it's an RPG that you do totally over text messaging, and so you can do it from anywhere, which is perfect right now, but you aren't sitting at a table seeing all of the emotions from different people, but you're also not guarding your own emotions either. It's all just through texting. And so you can be as excited or as calm as you want to be, just like you normally are when you're texting a friend. I just find that kind of stuff fascinating. I think it's neat to get more people to think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah, it's
Very
super
cool.
interesting.
So speaking of kind of alternate, different RPGs, Kids on Bikes is one that we came out with a couple of years ago with Hunters Entertainment as well, and you worked on that one. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you did for that?
Yeah, sure. So I think the first module that I wrote for it was Dads on Mowers. And initially, I think I was talking to Doug about this, and I was just like, hey, I have this idea. I want to do this thing. Please don't be mad at me. And he was just like, oh, I could never be mad at you because he's the nicest guy. He's just like really sweet and like really, just really nice in general. So I wrote the thing and I showed it to him, and he's just like, this is awesome. Like, let's make it happen. So that was like the first module that I wrote. And then after that, we collaborated on another module, Doug and I, which is based around like a boarding school experience. So Doug and I actually both went to separate boarding schools.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah. So we had that weird shared experience. So that's like a thing that we wrote about. And then after that, I wrote Grannies on Scooters with John Lemaire and Doggos on Skateboards, I think just came out.
I'm so excited about this. Yeah, so just a little background for anybody who doesn't know a ton about Kids on Bikes. It is an RPG system that's very simple. Anybody can pretty much pick it up and start playing it. But inside the book are a whole bunch of story hooks that give you all the information about an environment, all the setting stuff, so that you can take that and then continue building your own world with it. Because it's really more of a world building experience alongside that storytelling than a lot of RPGs are. It doesn't tell you this is everything you're going to find in your story. It tells you this is how you use this system, and now here are some ideas for you to create your own stories. So Banana has written several of these setting story hooks. We're calling them modules, and the most recent one actually just came out on our Free Content Friday, so you can find that on our website. And it's just a brand new module, all sorts of fun silly stuff in it, doggos on skateboards. And so yeah, you can go check that out on our site actually just for free. That's really neat. So how do you come up with all these wacky ideas? I love that.
I think it was a joke on Twitter. I mean, most of my ideas, I guess, start off as jokes. And then I thought it'd be funny. Like, Doug and I, we do this thing where like I consensually troll him a lot of the time. That's kind of what our friendship's like. And I thought it'd be funny to have something sort of like, if you're familiar with like a lot of horror stuff, John Carpenter's trilogy, Apocalypse trilogy, I thought it'd be funny to have like a version of that, but like a goofy version of that. So nice. Yeah, Doggos on Skateboards is like the second one. The first one was Grannies on Scooters, and then the third one is coming out, I believe, next month.
Very exciting. So much good stuff. So it seems like you do a lot of things in two very conflicting genres. You seem to really like horror and you really like comedy. So how do you get your brain into a space where you could do one or the other? Or do you prefer one or the other?
I think it really depends on my mood, and I also feel like the two sort of parallel one another in a certain way when you're writing or when you're creating in general. I guess it's sort of like this this weird space of discomfort that you feel when you're like watching something that's scary, or like when you're laughing at something that's so surreal and weird and like silly and goofy because it's so just like out there, like this would never happen in real life type of thing. So I think that there is like this parallel between the two genres. In terms of writing, it's definitely just like whatever I watch, whatever I consume, I regurgitate into like a thing.
Nice. You mentioned you've been listening to a lot of podcasts. Have you found any that you particularly enjoy recently?
Supernatural by with Ashley Flowers is my favorite right now. So that's on the creepier end of things, where the host Ashley Flowers, she talks about like all these different weird things that have happened, and she tries to debunk them, and like goes down this rabbit hole of all these strange facts. So that's something that I'm really into.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I love anything with strange facts. I'm all over that. I'll have to check that one out. That's awesome. So we talked a lot about your storytelling content, Kids on Bikes. Obviously, you've done a lot of work in that fantastic setting or in that fantastic RPG. But you've done a lot of other things too. So I did want to chat briefly about something that you have coming out very shortly. So this is one of the books from Athenaeum. What does this one say? It ain't easy being invisible. So Banana made how many of these titles for us? There's a crazy number of these. Like this is one of 2 of 5 boxes of just these titles, and this isn't even all of them. Like there's so many of these, and they're all unique. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Do you
I
know
think
how
it's in
many
the
of these there are? Oh yeah, definitely in the hundreds.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere over 100. But yeah, I was working, with Dan on it, like going back and forth on these silly titles. So it was a lot of fun.
They're so fantastic. I'm just literally pulling out random ones. I didn't prep this at all. This one's fantastic. Over it, say no to seances. These are so good. And I love that they're in these categories too. So we have like this. What is this category?
I think that one's the ghostly one, or is that the
I
psychic
think
one?
it is too. Oh, psychic maybe. Ask a medium. Here we go. Habits of effective phantoms. Are these ghosts and seances at the same time?
Yeah, I think
Maybe.
there are ones. So they're mostly lifestyle ones for ghosts.
Okay, bodybuilding
Yeah.
with a mortician. Yep,
Yep.
that's a lifestyle with ghost book. Dating for ghosts. That's
Yep.
important. You might need that. Okay. Yeah. And so we have all these different categories. Like, what are these ones? History of dragons. That's helpful. Unicorn studies. These must be monsters or something.
Yeah, monster textbooks.
Vampires of Science. I'm sure there are lots of those. That's a good book. Kappa removal techniques. Yep, might need some of that. Hard to say. Phoenix energy systems. So there's 5 different types of books, and it sounds like, if I'm understanding this story I've heard correctly, you basically wrote all of these in a weekend. Is that about right? Or a couple of days at least?
Gosh, yeah, I think so.
That's pretty amazing. So we were in San Diego in January, and we were trying to think about, okay, we have Gen Con coming up. We have these games we've already planned, they're in the works. And which one of these are we going to pick as our big Gen Con release? And so we went through our list and we're like, man, these are all exciting and these are good, but it just doesn't feel like we have quite the right one. And we were playtesting at the same time for games coming out in 2021. And we had this prototype and we played it for Athenaeum, and we were like, oh my gosh, this game is totally good to go. It doesn't need any development work beyond just a little bit of like the regular stuff we do. It's perfect, but we don't know if we can do this unless we can we can make these book titles, because that's going to make this game everything we want it to be. But man, who could do this that quickly? And Dan's like, I know. So Dan called you up and was like, hey, can you do this? And I'm so happy you said yes, because that was amazing. And we did. We actually had a couple of copies of it ready to go by Gen Con. We would have had obviously a lot more if we'd actually done it in person, but that's okay. So yeah, it's coming out in October.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me on board. This was super fun.
Yeah, it needed that silly extra banana twist to it. Fantastic. So another one we actually have coming out very soon is Warp's Edge. So what did you do for Warp's Edge?
So I did like it's sort of like a choose your own path type of story. So it's a short story where I like to think of it as like a tutorial type thing, where you are taking on the role of Taylor Mint, who's the sole pilot of this vehicle in space. And as you're going through the story, you're taking, you're choosing different things, and as you're choosing different paths, you choose like a different enemy that you're fighting, or you're choosing different things for your ship, all sorts of fun things. So Yeah.
Wow, it sounds really challenging to write a story that has all of these splitting paths like that, like keeping track of everything you've already written and making sure that everything makes sense as you go through those pathways seems like a big challenge.
It was actually pretty, surprisingly pretty easy once you get the hang of it. So I did a little bit of research on like choose your own adventure type books and how they split everything up into org charts. So I nerded out a little bit, but basically I use like a similar way of sorting everything out. And that's how you got Warp's Edge.
That's really cool. I'm really excited about adding that element to a solo game because you're already sort of in your own head, doing your own thing, trying to sort out this puzzle that's in front of you of this bag building game where you're trying to make sure that everything you're adding to your bag is exactly what you need to be able to get you there far enough to then essentially lose, warp back, start over, and then go again and try and finally eventually make it to the mothership. But going through that choose your own path type story as you're doing that really gives you some good motivation to keep going and directs you a little bit because you're just there by yourself. And I love the idea of storytelling solo games right now because I always think of solo games as being similar to just reading a book. Like, how many of us love just sitting in our own space, not being bothered by anybody, reading a good book? And why is it any different if we're playing a solo game? No, you get to do both. Yay! And you can play it multiple times because you might not end up on the same path that you did before. So I think that was really smart. I'm excited for that one to come out. We'll have to send you a copy with the upgrade kit too, as soon as we have it. The tokens are very fancy. I'm excited about those. I'm a sucker for dice components.
Excited.
Yeah, it should be good. And then the next one, actually the other one that you've worked on for us is Terror Below. So this actually came out last year already. And this is another sort of silly, cheeky, but horror genre game. So tell us a little bit about what you did for that one.
So for that, I wrote a short story, and it's in the perspective of a few different characters, and all the characters are in the game itself. So you can pick up some cards, and you can also see the character artwork, and like know a little bit about them as well through the game itself. And for that, I wrote while I was listening to Bon Jovi on loop. So here's the funny thing. I thought that Bon Jovi was one of the characters in Tremors. Apparently he's not in the movie. I don't know why I thought he was in the movie this entire time, but then like someone told me afterwards. I was just like, oh, well, it helped me write this thing. So
in your head, he was in the movie, and that's what matters.
I think he might have done some soundtrack stuff for it or something. I know there's something that he did, so
that's super funny.
I'm going with it.
I think that works. Nice. Yeah. So you wrote this short story that introduces all the characters, and I believe that was included in the Kickstarter edition of the game too. So that's fun. Are you looking forward to doing more of that type of thing? Like, would you rather be designing your own games, or do you like writing the stories for other games more?
Honestly, I like doing both. I think just because, I like the flexibility of doing, one thing versus another, just so that I don't get, tired of one thing or bored of a thing. It's nice to have, several different types of projects. And also it's just fun to have like Easter eggs in all these different projects too. Like for Terror Below, there's like, or maybe not Terror Below, but in Warp's Edge, there is a Terror Below Easter egg. So just like sliding things in there, it's kind of fun for me.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I know our graphic designer, Anita, she'll put Easter eggs in a lot of our games that are graphic design Easter eggs. So I like the idea of putting storytelling Easter eggs into our games too. I didn't realize you were doing that. Hilarious. That's awesome. So we're about halfway through. Before I keep asking you fun questions, I did want to remind everyone that anyone in chat can also ask fun questions, and we'll get to those very soon. And we're going to post the link for our giveaway this week. And because Banana has worked on so many games, we get to give away a whole bunch of games. So we're going to be giving away one copy of each of the games that she's worked on. So Athenaeum, Warp's Edge, Kids on Bikes, and Terra Below. So we'll have 4 winners this week. And all you need to do is fill out the info on that form. And our secret code word today is related to the awesome image that you sent over for all of our social media marketing this week of yourself. We are going to use ice cream as our code word because Banana was eating ice cream. It inspired us. Actually, now I really want to go get some ice cream too. So that's the other reason for our code word.
Nice.
So while people are filling that out, my next question for you is, what is the most out there thing that you want to write about, either for a game or just in general?
That's a really good question. So I can definitely talk about, well, there are 2 things that I kind of want to do right now. And one of them is hacking Vampire and making it into a What We Do in the Shadows type of scenario.
Oh my gosh. Have you seen the Kickstarter for the What We Do in the Shadows pins? Enamel pins? Anyway, I'm kind of obsessed with that show, so go on.
I am so excited for these pins now. So yes, I would absolutely want to check that out. And a while ago, Scott made a joke about having several different iterations of Terror Below. So it was like, what was it? I think it was like Terror Above or something like that. There was like a sky version, and then there's like an underwater version. And then I think at one point I accidentally joked that I kind of want to see like a Terror Within game where it's like an existential crisis.
Yes! You should definitely do that. You've had way more out there ideas than that one before that you've presented to me. So I think you should actually do that one. I like it. Oh my goodness. That would be exciting. All right. So Desiree, are there any questions in our chat?
Yes, there are. So let's see. We have a question. It was a little bit earlier. So, in what ways do you find limitations help you develop more interesting RPG or board game ideas?
I think restrictions are always good because they create these, they sort of like create these boundaries for you to like think harder and think more creatively. I always like working with, boundaries and restrictions just because like that way I can think about like, think about making a thing like a certain way or like, trying to include like things that I would normally never think about. So I think that for creative thinking to happen, you sort of have to have these restrictions. And some people may disagree with me, but that's normally how I work.
I think that's a really good question. Like we've seen a few of these in the board game space, like the Mint delivery system, or what is the name of that game? Mint Delivery Inc. Maybe. Anyway, it's a game that comes in a little teeny tiny gum tin, and it was part of a contest originally where can you make a game with these very restrictive component things that they put on it, and said, okay, good luck people, you can only use these things. And there were some awesome games that came out of it. Like Mint Delivery is a little tiny worker placement game that you can basically play on the tray in front of you in an airplane, but it's still a full-on worker placement game, which I thought was really cool. And we've also seen that in several other genres too, like painting. I love doing 1 hour painting contests at my store and seeing how awesome people can be when they have that time restriction given to them. We've also done 24-hour comic creation contests in our store, which is awesome because you get to do a lock-in event where everybody stays there overnight. They're drinking Mountain Dew and just writing like crazy, trying to get it done. Those are really fun events. But I'm always impressed by how creative people can be when they suddenly have to do it right now. No procrastinating, just get it done. Yeah. And so, yeah, I agree. Some of those limitations can be good.
Yeah, and I think also things like the 200 word RPG, like that is really impressive because you can, I feel like, when people sort of have to, like, when there's a time limitation, or where there's like, an ingredient limitation, or there's like a limitation on like how many words you can have, like that sort of provides the seeds for like, something really interesting.
Definitely. Now I want to do a baking competition with only like 5 ingredient baking lists. That would also be fun. So many good things. Awesome. So Desiree, any other good questions?
Yes. So what genres do you prefer, if you have one? Sci-fi, horror, fantasy? Do you have a favorite?
I would say dark comedy is my favorite. Dark comedy mixed with like, either sci-fi or horror. So, having those like those out there elements mixed together with something that's like sort of goofy. Though in the horror space, I really, really like dinner party horror movies, like specifically horror movies with dinner parties in them. I don't know why, but I really enjoy them. I have a whole list if you want them.
I may ask you for that. That's funny. I can think of a few, but not their names. So what would be your favorite dinner party horror movie?
So
or just one that you like.
So my list, I guess. So Coherence is one. So Coherence is more like a sci-fi movie, but it does have horror elements. So I do sometimes count it, but that's just me being sneaky. So there's Coherence. There's Get Out. It's not necessarily a dinner party, but it does use like a dinner table. The Invitation is another one, which is amazing. It's a slow burner, but it's totally worth it.
I'm going to put Rick and Morty on that list for me, because they eat at their dinner table all the time.
Nice.
Oh, funny. Awesome. What's next, Desiree?
So, do you prefer to play or run an RPG? Which provides you more joy?
Ooh, these days I really like playing RPGs, just because I play test so much, and I play, our own games so much. I would really like to just sit back and be a player, and I do get to do that like every so often. It's just that I would like more player experiences versus GM experiences now.
So when you write something like Doggos on Skateboards that's coming out, that we just put out on the Free Content Friday, do you play that with people? Do you GM that with people? Like, how do you play test it?
I GM with people and see how they react. And usually it's very goofy, it's very silly. And I just like running silly games and just seeing people have fun.
Nice. Yeah, that's very apparent from the things you have written. They are mostly very silly. I like it.
All right. So any advice for new game designers, or things you wish you knew when you started?
I would say definitely just keep at it. Like, that's one of the things that I would say. Like, sometimes there have been instances where I've finished writing a thing and I'm just like, reading it over, and I'm like, this is not, I would think to myself, this is not good, or this is not good enough. But that's just like, that's just a thing. Like, that's just your mind trying to tell you that you're not good enough. Like, I try to just set that aside and keep working. Because I went to art school, and a lot of the time, the professors aren't the nicest when it comes to critiquing. So you sort of have to like throw that out the window. So I think that like one thing is definitely just to keep going. Like, you might be your harshest critic, but just keep working, keep finishing things, and just keep going.
I find that really interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. So you mentioned that when you go through art school, you take a lot of personal criticism, and people are not necessarily attacking you, but you're having to learn how to grow in that particular part of your personality and deal with that. And I think a lot of other professions and a lot of other college degrees don't teach you that very well. Like, I went through my whole college years as a scientist. And when I graduated, every single thing that I had learned had either been a fact or I was wrong, and it wasn't anything personal. And so I didn't ever have the experience of taking that personal criticism the way that an artist would have, which is interesting because it's not something you would expect. Like at the end, you would expect these artists to be emotional and touchy-feely and scientists to be hard and stoic, but they don't ever get the experience of having to deal with emotions. So sometimes it can be quite the opposite. So that's really interesting. I think that's cool that you're able to get past some of that critique and then able to do that for yourself too. And that seems really important when you're writing and creating RPGs, game design, anything, because so many other people are going to take this awesome thing that you made and then talk about it on the internet. And that is not always an easy thing to deal with.
Yeah.
So yeah. Do you have any advice for people who are new to that and are about to publish their first game?
I think in the game design or game writing sphere of things, like definitely when you're doing like play tests or when you're like, sharing it with friends or sharing it with, another game designer, one of the things that I like to do is I like to think of it as user testing. Because like when you sort of separate yourself from like, the thing that you're making, it's still a precious thing that you're making. It's still your baby, but it's okay if, it changes and it grows and, it develops into a new thing. So I think having that flexibility is really important.
Seems like very sound advice.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
What's next, Desiree?
So what is your favorite game mechanism?
That's a good question.
So in LARP, I really like the bird in ear mechanism. And that is when you're in a scene, another player comes up to you, whispers something in your ear, and that's how your character changes, or that's how you have to act as a character. Like the thing that they're whispering in your ear is now fact, basically, or what you're thinking or feeling. So I really like that in LARPs. In RPGs, probably ad libs, just like having ad libs for character sheets and ad libs for like, for different things like setting creation or world building stuff. Like, I think that's really cool. And for board games, let me think about this one. I really like roll and writes right now. And I used to be really big into worker placement games. Now, so not so much because I don't have anyone to play with. But yeah, like I really like solo games too. So yeah.
Nice. I like the idea of, what did you call it? The bird?
Oh, bird in your ear. Yeah.
Bird in your ear. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, when I was demoing Alice is Missing, there's an interesting thing where you have this one group text that you're all talking in, but then you can also just individually text someone and get information from them specifically or give them information on this sort of side thing. I thought that doing that with texting is really smart because you could do that in the middle of any RPG. Like even if you're at a table, you could still like text each other a little secret piece of information. It'd be a really easy way to do that.
I just realized there's one more thing that I really enjoy, and this is from Jeff Dieterle's game, Longtime Listener, Last Time Caller, which is also on the Golden Cobra Challenge website, and it's free, so you can definitely like go download that, where it's a radio play RPG, where the GM is the person who has, who's basically like the radio DJ, and then the people that are calling in are the different players, and using prompts, you would just like, call in, act as like a character, and it's very laid back. It plays out just like a regular radio show. So you could be listening or you could be playing. So that's
really
cool.
I really
enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really different. I like that. Very interesting.
Okay, let's see. Trying to see if there are any questions that I missed.
So
yeah, I think we hit them all. Yeah.
All right. Well, while people are thinking of any other questions, or while I think of any more questions, I did have one very important one. Obviously, Banana, we need to know, what is your favorite kind of ice cream?
Oh, okay. So there's this kind of ice cream that is specific, I believe, to the Michigan area, I think. It's called Superman. But in Toronto, where I'm from, it's called Super Kid, and it's only available at the Sara Lee chocolate shops. So yeah, so I can't find it anywhere where I'm at. I'm in Jersey, and I can't find it anywhere. But that's one of my favorites. It's like 3 different flavors mixed into one. It's like cherry, like blue, and yellow.
So were you the kid who would go to the soda machine and like put all the different kinds of soda in your cup at the same time?
I am.
Nailed it.
What's your favorite?
Oh, my favorite kind of ice cream. So somebody asked me this the other day, and really I do have a hard time picking because I like lots of different ice cream. So when we go on big convention trips and we'll have our whole demo team there, we'll often go and get ice cream afterwards. And I don't live in a big city. Like I don't have ice cream shops that we go to. This is not a thing that happens. So it's always so exciting. Like you get the little samples, so you get to try all these different kinds. Like that's amazing. And so I always try way too many samples. It drives Scott crazy. But I think probably my actual favorite is pretty boring. It's probably mint. I love mint flavored things, and mint ice cream is just really good. So it's kind of hard to beat that. Yeah. But it's a close contest between like 8 other flavors that I like too. So, whatever drives Scott crazy. Yeah, that's the best. Oh, funny.
Okay, so we did get a few more in while you were talking about ice cream flavors. Nice. So what would you recommend to people writing their own worlds and designing games with inclusion in mind? And how can people be respectful of cultural inclusion without appropriating or being disrespectful?
It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think definitely including a consultant on board, like, from the very beginning, like having a consultant or having, someone from that specific culture sort of like write with you so that you're not doing this alone. I think it's really important to have someone with that experience and, that sort of that background so that you sort of like gain their understanding of this theme that you're playing with as well. So like for us specifically, when we were working on Junction, we had like 3 different consultants because, neither Senfon or I, like, we don't come from restaurant families. So we hired like one of my friends who actually did come from a restaurant family and asked her to like, write bits and pieces and like go through the document and like, do all that stuff for us. And we also have like a sensitivity consultant because, sometimes maybe my words are a little too salty. So I need like someone to tell me if I need to like roll back a little bit. So yeah, so I think it's really good to have consultants or, people from that culture early on and just like introduce them as soon as you can.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And that's also really interesting that you brought in different people, because if you ask for just one other perspective, you're only going to get one other perspective, and that's just that person's point of view. So having multiple people from different walks of life looking at this thing that can all talk about the specifics of whatever your game are, super smart. I really like that. I know it's expensive to do that because of course we want to pay those cultural consultants for their time and their expertise, but I think it's totally worth it in the end. That's really smart to do that. Cool. Good answer. What's our next question?
Have you ever LARPed Vampire? And if so, what was your clan and what is your favorite vampire clan?
I've never LARPed Vampire, but I have played the PC game.
Nice.
Yeah, so this is kind of embarrassing. I played
You were Malkavian?
Yes.
Malkavian. That's what I've been playing in the card game. I think it's super fun. Yeah, they do all sorts of like just crazy stuff that's sneaky and fun. And I just think it's neat to be a little bit wild sometimes.
Yeah, so yeah, it was a fun PC game. I remember it being like very interesting.
Nice. Yeah, they're coming out with a new one soon. I can't wait for it to hit.
What?
It's gonna be good. I know.
Oh wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I played the story version on the Switch, and that was a lot of fun as well. Like going through the different stories. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm so excited. I just ordered a new PC this week because my PC crashed and almost burned. I have actually lit multiple computers on fire because I like to build my own. It doesn't always go well. So I just ordered one that's actually pre-built this time. I can't wait for it to get here, mostly so I can play Vampire. It'll be great.
Oh, wow. Okay. that's awesome.
Actually, this is hilarious. So my first computer that I built right before I went to college. And this was a long time ago because I'm old. And trying to buy computer parts and like get them to actually all fit together and do what they're supposed to do was kind of hard. And so during my CS final in college, like my first semester, my computer actually lit on fire. I was like, I should definitely not pass.
Oh my God.
It was a little embarrassing, but anyway, it's my exciting story about computers.
Can I do a quick correction on the ice cream place? Because I just realized I misspoke. I meant Laura Secord, which is the ice cream place that I usually go to in Toronto. It's a chain shop. I said Sarah Lee earlier because someone Sarah Lee messaged me.
Oh, that's
so
funny.
I was, like, reading her name, and I was like, "Oh, wait a second."
Well, there's also like this Sarah Lee baking company that makes like things you would find in the frozen food aisle. I used to get these little Sarah Lee coffee cakes when I was a kid all the time. They were like seriously one of my favorite things. Every Sunday morning, my dad would bake something for us, and occasionally he would get me a little Sarah Lee coffee cake. So that could have been a real thing, but apparently it wasn't. That's okay. Nice.
All right, so we do have one more. And it was a question that I did miss, so thank you all for bringing that back up. Any advice for gamers new to RPGs?
It's also a good question.
Yeah, I think definitely starting with easier system, not easier, but more accessible systems. Like Kids on Bikes is really accessible, and sort of getting a flow for like how to role play. So like I think learning how to role play is kind of tricky for people who don't like necessarily have necessarily done it before, especially since like the whole idea of role playing, it feels like something that you sort of need permission for sometimes, or at least like when I started role playing, I always felt like, oh, do I need like permission to play this character, or do I have permission to like go do this thing? And most of the time, like if you're playing with a GM that you're familiar with, then yes, definitely do the thing, unless you know you're crossing any lines or veils or anything like that. So I think like playing with an accessible system definitely is a good starting point, and also finding a group that you're comfortable with. So like, you know, maybe it could be your friend group, maybe it could be you know, finding like a couple of friends and asking them if they want to play a game with you. That's also cool, because then that way you feel more comfortable. And also setting expectations beforehand. So some games might be, you know, sillier than others, but when you're at the table, it's different from what the game is marketed to be. So maybe the game could be silly, but when you're at the table, maybe everyone wants to play like a more serious game, or maybe they're setting the tone a different way. So I think setting expectations is really important, and that's also like a part of safety as well, so that everyone is on the same page. So if you want to do a thing and you're realizing that like other people don't really want to do that thing, you can always rewind and re-script yourself, and people will be forgiving to whatever mistakes there are.
So we actually chatted about this a little bit in another show I was on. We were talking about what kind of character you should play. Like, do you recommend that newer players play somebody that's like their actual personality, or the complete opposite?
I think it really depends on the person. I think for newer players, it might be more comfortable to play someone that you're familiar with. So maybe not necessarily yourself, but it could be someone that, a character that you've seen on TV, right? Like, or a character you've seen, portrayed in a movie. Like maybe, with What You Do in the Shadows, maybe you really like Nandor's character and you're just like, I really want to play that character. Like, I want to see what hijinks, this character goes into. So I think trying to find like a character that you really relate to in popular culture and like, playing that is something that you can try experimenting with.
What would Nandor do? Just play that game.
Right.
I love it.
We do have
That's
one
fantastic.
more geared towards just geared toward the GM. So any advice you have for GMs who want to start implementing modular design?
I think don't overwhelm yourself with too much stuff. So I think just having an outline is great, but be flexible with yourself and be forgiving to yourself when you can't hit all the notes. And if your players want to do something else completely, then that's okay as well. Just as long as you're able to like be flexible with your players and also like set expectations so that they know what you want to play as well, because you're a player, you're a part of the story, you're part of like collaborating with with your players. So I think that having an outline is really helpful, but not going too in depth that if you have really specific items that that happen in this outline that you don't that you won't be able to play out in the game, you won't be disappointed, and you won't be like mad at yourself for not being able to play it out.
So the very first RPG I ever played in my whole life, the GM had planned to have all of us go into a forest, come to a Y intersection, and go left. And no joke, we said we're going right with no idea which way we should go. And we spent 2 hours just walking around in the woods. Because there was no story that direction. It's a pretty extreme example of what you're talking about. But yes, I think flexibility is very important because all those monsters in story could have probably been on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
So, good advice. So, I will also say I did not play RPGs for a long time after that.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, one day we should play something.
We should. That would be very fun. I like it.
So it looks like that's all the questions for now, and I mean it looks like it's a good time to end on those. But if you can, Sarah, just mention the giveaway again, please.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you everyone for all those great questions. That was super fun. And Banana, those are fantastic answers. I'm very impressed as always. So before we end though, yes, we do have a wonderful giveaway today to celebrate all of the games that Banana has worked on with us and all the fun stuff she's done. So we're going to be giving away a copy of Athenaeum, Warp's Edge, Kids on Bikes, and Terror Below. Is fill out the simple, super easy form that Desiree's posting in chat and use the code word ice cream. And whether that's 1 word or 2 words, I don't know, but it doesn't matter. You can just put it in there and we'll figure it out. Pretty sure it's 1 word, but that's fine. Also, Banana, now that people have gotten to know you a little bit, where can they go find you on the internet if they want to follow all the fun stuff you've got going on?
I am almost always on Twitter at BananaChan Games, and I'm occasionally on Instagram, also at BananaChan Games.
Nice. And will you be doing a late pledge for your game that you just wrapped up?
Yes, I will have to talk to Wet Ink Games about that, but I think we are doing late pledges. So yes, that's Junction of Blood in Banquet Hall, and it just ended on Kickstarter yesterday. So Yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, congratulations. That's very exciting. And thank you so much for being here. It has been a blast to chat with you about RPGs and storytelling and ice cream and everything else. And so enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you, everyone who joined us this week in chat, asked lots of great questions. We'll be back again next week, and we will see you then. Have fun.